She was told she wasn't ready. She was told the top 10 was too far away. And now, one Filipina from a country that never had a WTA champion is 90 minutes away from history. Jessica Pegula has already beaten her once in a Miami slugfest that left scars. Today, in the nation's capital, Alex Eala gets her revenge shot and the entire Philippines is holding its breath. This is not just a tennis match. This is the moment a nation finds out if their dream is real. 12 months ago, Alex Eala was a name tennis insiders whispered about, a promising junior with a big serve and bigger ambitions, but nowhere near the conversation of Grand Slam contenders. Today, she stands one match away from her first WTA 500 title, and the path she carved to get here reads like a highlight reel nobody could have scripted. She dismantled Elina Svitolina in straight sets to book her semifinal spot, a win that would have been the headline of the tournament on any normal week. But this week wasn't normal, because 2 matches later, Eala walked onto the court against Naomi Osaka, a 4-time Grand Slam champion and former world #1, and did not blink. She broke early, traded blows through a tense middle stretch, and then closed out the first set by ripping off 3 straight games after racing to 40-love in each. The second set was even more emphatic, a 6-2 statement that sent the DC crowd into a frenzy of green shirts and Philippine flags waving in the summer heat. This was not a lucky upset. This was a systematic dismantling of one of the most decorated players in the sport's modern history, delivered by a 21-year-old who has now beaten 6 top 10 opponents in a single season. Along the way to this final, Eala also took down Olympic gold medalist Qinwen Zheng and the defending Washington champion Leylah Fernandez, a run so relentless that it has already lifted her to a career-high world ranking inside the top 25. What makes this surge more remarkable is the composure underneath it. Eala has described herself as more well-rounded now than she was a year ago, crediting improved physicality and refined strokes for the difference. She has escaped deficits that would have buried a less confident player, clawing back from a 5-1 hole against Fernandez in a comeback players in the locker room are still talking about. The fan support trailing her at every stop has been described as deafening, a wall of noise that seems to fuel rather than rattle her. She herself has said that experience and preparation, plus long conversations with her coach before every match, are what keep her calm inside that storm. Now she stands at the edge of the biggest moment of her career, carrying not just her own ambition, but the hopes of an entire tennis nation that has waited generations for a moment exactly like this one. If Eala is the story of a meteoric rise, Jessica Pegula is the story of relentless, quiet dominance, and underestimating her would be the single biggest mistake anyone could make heading into this final. The American arrives in Washington as the tournament's top seed and the most in-form player on the entire WTA Tour, a status she earned through sheer volume of winning. 38 match wins this season and counting, 22 of them on hard courts alone, numbers that place her at the very top of the entire women's game for total victories in 2026. This is her 4th final of the year, and a win would hand her a 3rd title of the season, matching a career-best mark she hasn't touched since 2023. Her road to this final was not without turbulence. She dropped the first set of an early round match against Magdalena Frech with a first serve percentage that barely cracked 36%, a number that would worry any coach. But Pegula's response has been the defining trait of her tournament, because in 4 of the 6 sets she has played since that shaky start, her first serve percentage has climbed to 60% or higher, and in 2 of those sets it eclipsed 65%. That serve efficiency turned her semifinal against Diana Schneider from a real scare into a statement win, as she recovered from trailing early to close it out 7-5, 6-4 in under 90 minutes, extending her perfect head-to-head record against the Russian. Hard courts have always been Pegula's kingdom, with the overwhelming majority of her career tour-level finals coming on this exact surface. And Washington holds special meaning for her since it's the same court where she captured her very first career title back in 2019. Now, 7 years later, she returns to that same stage chasing her 12th career trophy and her 2nd DC Open crown. At world number 3, with a game built on suffocating consistency, deep return positioning, and an ability to grind out long rallies without cracking, Pegula represents the exact kind of opponent that tests whether a rising star's game has real foundations or is simply riding a hot streak. Her legacy in this sport has been built one unglamorous, efficient win at a time, and she does not intend to let a breakout story steal her moment in the city where her championship journey first began. To understand what today's final really means, you have to go back to Miami, to a semifinal that changed the trajectory of Alex Eala's career even in defeat. It was there that Eala, then an unranked outsider crashing the party of the sport's biggest stars, pushed Pegula to the absolute brink across 3 grueling sets. The scoreline read 7-6, 5-7, 6-3, a battle that swung on razor-thin margins and left both players physically and emotionally drained. Pegula survived that day, but everyone watching understood they had witnessed something bigger than a routine semifinal win. They had watched the arrival of a player who belonged on the biggest stages of the sport, even if the result didn't go her way. That match ended Eala's dream run in Miami, but it also planted a seed, a rivalry that both women have carried with them ever since. Unspoken but unmistakable every time their names appeared in the same draw afterward. Now, more than a year later, they meet again, and almost nothing about the context is the same. Eala insists she is a fundamentally different player than the one who walked off that Miami court. More physically resilient, more tactically mature, more comfortable executing under Jeremy pressure rather than simply surviving it. She has pointed specifically to improvements in her stroke mechanics and overall game balance as the difference between the raw talent Pegula beat in Florida and the complete competitor stepping onto the court in Washington. Pegula, for her part, has never lost the respect that match earned in her eyes, openly acknowledging that this version of Eala, polished and battle-tested from a season of beating elite opponents, could pose a far tougher challenge than the one she faced when their rivalry began. The stakes could not be higher this time either because, unlike that semifinal in Miami, this meeting is for an actual championship trophy, the difference between a heartbreaking near miss and the life-changing title. Every player who has ever lost a defining early match wants a rematch on bigger terms, and fate has handed Eala exactly that, in a final that feels less like a coincidence and more like something written to happen. Break this final down point by point, and you find 2 contrasting styles set on a collision course that should produce genuine tennis theater rather than a predictable script. Pegula's game is built on precision and patience, a counter-punching style that thrives on absorbing pace and redirecting it with pinpoint depth, wearing opponents down over long, grinding rallies until a crack finally appears. Her first serve percentage will be the single most important statistic to track, because when it climbs above 60%, as it has in her last 4 sets, she becomes nearly impossible to break, dictating play from the very first shot of nearly every point. Eala's game, by contrast, is more explosive and aggressive, a first-strike mentality built around a heavy serve, and a willingness to take the ball early and rush her opponents out of their rhythm before they can settle into the kind of extended rallies Pegula prefers. Against Osaka, that aggression translated into an extraordinary serving performance, winning over 70% of first serve points and nearly 79% of second serve points, numbers that would trouble any player on the tour, let alone one facing the tournament's most consistent performer. The breakpoint battle will likely decide this match more than any other single factor. Eala has shown a knack for generating enormous pressure on opposing service games throughout this tournament, manufacturing a dozen break chances against Osaka alone, while simultaneously showing improved composure in saving breakpoints against her own serve, rather than folding under pressure like a less experienced player might. Pegula's counter to that aggression has always been her return game, an ability to neutralize big serves by getting the ball back deep and heavy, forcing errors rather than hitting outright winners, a style that has quietly produced some of the best return numbers on tour this season. The surface favors Pegula on paper, given her hard-court pedigree stretches back years, but Eala has now proven twice in this very tournament that reputation and ranking mean little once she finds her rhythm, having already eliminated multiple higher-ranked, more decorated opponents en route to this final. Crowd energy could also tip the emotional scales, since Eala has fed off an extraordinary wave of home support throughout the week, a factor that has visibly lifted her level in tight moments when lesser players would have wilted under the weight of expectation. So who actually wins this one? Every angle points to a match far closer than the ranking gap between world number 3 and world number 20-something would suggest, and that alone should make this final appointment viewing for any tennis fan. Pegula enters as the deserved favorite, riding the best win total on tour this season and a hard-court resume that speaks for itself, backed by a serve that has been trending sharply upward at exactly the right moment of the tournament. Her experience in pressure moments, including 4 finals already this year, gives her a composure edge that inexperienced finalists often lack when the trophy is actually on the line. But Eala is not the same player who lost in Miami, and every piece of evidence from this tournament suggests a competitor who has genuinely leveled up her physical and tactical game to match her natural talent. The likeliest path to a Pegula win runs through her return game, suffocating Eala's big serve over a long, grinding 3 sets, using patience and depth to slowly break down the Filipino's aggression until the errors start creeping in during the decisive moments. The likeliest path to an Eala win looks almost the opposite, an explosive start that steals the first set behind big serving and fearless shot-making, using the deafening home crowd support to carry that early momentum deep into a match where Pegula simply cannot find the return rhythm she needs in time. Given Pegula's superior big match composure and her red-hot serving form over her last 4 sets, the edge leans toward the American claiming her 12th career title in a hard-fought 3-set battle that mirrors the intensity of their Miami Classic. But do not be shocked, and do not look away for a single point if Alex Eala writes the most historic chapter of Philippine tennis history by beating the tour's most informed player on the very court where legends are made. This final has all the ingredients of an instant classic, and whichever way the trophy goes, women's tennis has already found its next great rivalry. If you enjoyed this latest tennis update and want to stay ahead of the biggest stories in the world, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe the channel right now. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of the action. See you in the next video.